At the heart of every human century, there are ideas that outlive their creators. Sometimes they are inventions. Sometimes they are visions. And sometimes they are both. In the late 19th century, a man named Alfred Nobel, chemist, inventor, industrialist, would leave behind a legacy so powerful that it would redefine how the world measures greatness. A man who made his fortune from explosives would one day become a symbol of peace. This is the story of how the Nobel Prize was born, out of guilt, genius, and a deep desire to serve humanity. Welcome to Renaissance Reframed. Alfred Bernhard Nobel was born in Stockholm, Sweden, in 1833. His father, Emanuel Nobel, was an engineer and inventor, driven but unlucky. His experiments often ended in bankruptcy, forcing the family to move to Russia, where better opportunities awaited. In St. Petersburg, the young Alfred grew up, surrounded by machines, blueprints, and experiments. He was a child of the Industrial Revolution, curious, restless, and gifted. He loved chemistry and languages, spoke fluently in several tongues, and dreamed of creating something extraordinary. When he was just a teenager, he studied under the famous chemist Professor Jules Pelouse in Paris, and later worked with Ascanio Sobrero, the man who discovered nitroglycerin, a substance so volatile, even a drop could explode from the slightest touch. Sobrero himself warned, "This material is too dangerous to ever be used." But Nobel saw something else, a challenge and a possibility. Throughout the 1860s, Nobel experimented tirelessly. He wanted to tame nitroglycerin, to make it stable, controllable, useful. After years of trials and tragedies, including an explosion that killed his own brother, he finally succeeded. By mixing nitroglycerin with a porous substance called kieselguhr, Nobel created a paste that could be shaped into sticks and detonated safely. He called it dynamite. The invention revolutionized construction, mining, and engineering. Mountains could be moved, tunnels carved, railways built faster than ever before. But Nobel's success came at a price, because the same invention that built cities could also destroy them. Governments bought his explosives for war. His factories produced weapons that could level fortresses. And slowly, Alfred Nobel began to realize that the fortune he had made might forever be linked to death. In 1888, Alfred Nobel's brother, Ludwig, died in Cannes, France. But a French newspaper made a terrible mistake. They thought Alfred, the inventor, had died instead. The next morning, Alfred Nobel opened a paper to find his own obituary, staring back at him. The headline read, "The Merchant of Death is dead." It went on to condemn him. Dr. Alfred Nobel, who made his fortune by finding ways to kill more people, faster than ever before, died yesterday. Imagine that. You wake up to see how the world would remember you before you're even gone. For Nobel, it was a moment of awakening. He realized that history would not see the brilliant inventor, or the linguist, or the idealist. It would only see the man who made explosives. And so, he decided to rewrite his legacy. On November 27, 1895, in Paris, Alfred Nobel signed what would become one of the most influential documents in modern history, his last will and testament. In it, he instructed that the majority of his fortune, around 31 million Swedish kronor, should be placed in a trust. The interest from this trust, he wrote, should be used every year to reward those who have conferred the greatest benefit to humankind. 5 prizes were to be awarded annually. 1 for physics, 1 for chemistry, 1 for physiology or medicine, 1 for literature, and 1 for peace, to the person or organization that worked with fraternity of nations and the abolition of war. There was one more curious detail. While the scientific and literary prizes would be awarded by Swedish institutions, the Peace Prize would be chosen by a committee in Norway, a separate nation even though both countries were then united under one crown. Historians still debate why Nobel made this choice. Some say he wanted the Peace Prize to remain politically independent. Others believe he admired Norway's liberal traditions. Whatever the reason, his will made it so, and that tradition continues to this day. When Alfred Nobel died in 1896, his will shocked both his family and the public. His relatives were furious. Governments were skeptical. Institutions had no idea how to even begin organizing what he proposed. It took 4 years of legal battles, debates, and negotiations to fulfill his vision. The executors of his estate, led by his trusted associate Ragnar Solman, had to persuade Swedish authorities, Nobel's heirs, and numerous institutions to cooperate. Finally, in 1900, the Nobel Foundation was created, an independent body to manage his endowment and ensure his will was carried out faithfully. And in 1901, 5 years after his death, the first ever Nobel Prizes were awarded. The world watched with curiosity. Would this new prize truly mean anything? That question was answered the moment the names were announced. In physics, the first prize went to Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen for his discovery of X-rays, a breakthrough that would transform medicine forever. In chemistry, it went to Jacobus Henricus van 't Hoff for his work on chemical dynamics. In physiology or medicine, to Emil von Behring, who discovered a serum against diphtheria. In literature, the poet Sully Prudhomme was honored for his poetic idealism. And the Peace Prize went jointly to Henri Dunant, founder of the Red Cross, and Frédéric Passy, a French peace activist. The date of the ceremony, December 10th, was chosen to commemorate the day of Alfred Nobel's death. That tradition continues even now, more than a century later. In the decades that followed, the Nobel Prize became the highest mark of human achievement. It celebrated pioneers like Marie Curie, who became the first person ever to win 2 Nobel Prizes, one in physics and another in chemistry. It honored minds like Albert Einstein, who reshaped our understanding of a universe. And it recognized voices like Ernest Hemingway, Rabindranath Tagore, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and Toni Morrison, whose words touch the human soul. But perhaps the most symbolic of all is the Nobel Peace Prize, awarded not for discovery, but for humanity. From Martin Luther King Jr. to Mother Teresa, from Nelson Mandela to Malala Yousafzai, it has stood as a moral compass in a world often torn by division. Of course, even greatness invites controversy. There were years when no prize was awarded, especially during the World Wars. There were years when prizes were rejected, disputed, or criticized. The Nobel Peace Prize, in particular, has sparked endless debate, sometimes praised as visionary, sometimes condemned as political. Yet, through all its storms, the Nobel Prize has remained resilient, its integrity anchored by the Foundation's strict secrecy and independence. Only 3 people can share one prize, and nominations remain sealed for 50 years. Even the amount awarded fluctuates with the Foundation's investments, making it not just a medal, but a living institution, constantly adapting to time. In 1968, a new prize joined the Nobel family, but not by Alfred Nobel's original will. The Bank of Sweden, celebrating its 300th anniversary, created the prize in economic sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel. It wasn't one of the original 5, but it followed the same spirit and was quickly accepted into the Nobel legacy. Since then, economists like Amartya Sen, Daniel Kahneman, and Milton Friedman have received it expanding the Nobel's influence into the realm of human behavior, finance, and decision-making. Today, over 120 years later, the Nobel Prize stands as a mirror of humanity's evolution. It honors not just discovery, but courage, not just intellect, but empathy. Every year, on December 10th, laureates gather in Stockholm and Oslo to receive a medal bearing Alfred Nobel's image, his legacy carved in gold. The moment is ceremonial, but its meaning runs deeper. It is the world's collective promise to keep striving for knowledge, truth, and peace. The Nobel Prize, however, is not without its critics. Some say it's Eurocentric. Some argue that its categories are outdated, that it overlooks fields like mathematics, environmental science, or technology. And some question whether a single prize can ever measure the vast, chaotic beauty of human achievement. Perhaps they're right, but maybe that was never the point. Maybe Alfred Nobel didn't intend to define perfection. He simply wanted to inspire pursuit. A pursuit of peace, of progress, of possibility. Alfred Nobel died alone in Italy in 1896. He never married, never had children, and was often described as a lonely genius. But his final act ensured that, long after his death, he would be remembered not as the merchant of death, but as a patron of life. Through the Nobel Prize, his fortune continues to fund hope. Every discovery that heals, every book that enlightens, every act that brings peace, echoes his transformation from guilt to greatness. The story of the Nobel Prize is the story of redemption. It reminds us that no matter how dark our past, we can choose to light the future. One man's conscience reshaped how the world honors genius, and in doing so, reminded us that true greatness lies not in power, but in purpose. I'm your host, and this is Renaissance Reframed. Until next time, keep questioning, keep imagining, and never stop seeking the better within us all.